Well, welcome everyone back to the White Sand Self-Care Community. I am your host, Laura Cross, and I am excited to have with me today Sheryl Green. She at once took people pleasing, as she would say, to an Olympic level, where putting everyone's needs before her own. I'm sure none of us could relate. None of us can relate to that, right? Until she discovered the importance of boundary setting. And she is also the author of You Had Me at No, which I have to tell you, Sheryl, I absolutely love the title of that book.
Thank
Um,
you.
but thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. So,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
oh, absolutely. So, can you tell us what was the defining moment in your life?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you one of them. There's been so many, but what really set me off on this boundary journey is a couple of years ago, I was working full time for an animal rescue. I was running my own content writing business. And even with like 16 to 18-hour days, I wasn't making ends meet. I was barely keeping a roof over my head. Nonprofit does not pay a lot.
Oh,
And, I had all of these other side responsibilities. My parents were getting older. I was helping to take care of them. I had, board responsibilities for other organizations, volunteer, all of these things. And I got to the point where I was crying constantly. And people laugh when I say this because I cry a lot normally,
mhm.
but this was just constant, could not open my mouth, could not get a sentence out without tears. And I was getting really short with people and I wasn't sleeping. And what really hit me was I was starting to feel resentful of the people and the causes that I cared about. And one day I had just had enough and I was driving down the road. I couldn't really see any, hope at the end of the tunnel. And I saw oncoming headlights. And I had this really quick thought bounce into my head. If I just crossed over that median, this could all be over in a second. And it scared the crap out of me, thankfully. I pulled over to the side of the road. I didn't want to hurt anybody else. I didn't want to leave my family without anybody. And I sat on the side of the road for about 15 minutes, calming myself down and just saying, something has to give, something has to change. And it took another couple of months to realize what the problem was. But I had unloaded everything non-essential on my plate. I took a month off from the rescue for my own mental health.
Mhm.
And eventually I realized that I had no boundaries and pretty much all the problems that I'd had in my life and all the poor decisions I'd made up until that point, they all came from a complete and utter lack of healthy boundaries. So I embarked on a journey and did all the research to write the book. And now I speak about it. And now I get to help other people that have a similar problem.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times, sometimes we don't get that help. But it always seems how something tragic or something really bad has to happen to kind of wake us up. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you did
Universal
not.
kick.
Yeah, I'm glad you did not cross over to those headlights, and I can relate to that. But what are boundaries to you?
Boundaries are what we are willing to tolerate. They are where we end and other people begin, and vice versa. And really, how we allow ourselves and by extension, our things to be treated.
Yeah. I would say that's a very accurate and good good definition. We've all had different boundaries. That's how I always told people. It's like, and that's why I love the title of your books. I always tell people, no is a complete
Yeah.
sentence. It's okay. You don't owe anyone an explanation. So I love that you had me at no.
Thank
But
you.
what happens when we have unhealthy boundaries?
We start people pleasing. And I think it can go in both directions. You can have unhealthy boundaries in that your boundaries are too rigid. So you don't let people in, you don't connect, you don't ask for help with things. You really just have a hard time allowing people into your world. But what I see most is on the other side. It's these overly porous boundaries where we're like, sure, I'll do absolutely everything for everyone. And yeah, you must know what's best for me, even though you're not me and you don't know me. Um, and let me just, sorry about the verbiage. Let me just vomit out my life story to complete strangers,
Yeah.
And of course, I think a lot of people can resonate with the like, I can fix everyone around me. I
I
can
have no
fix
idea what you're
you.
talking about.
No, not at all.
At all.
I can
At all.
fix you. And even worse than that, I'm responsible for fixing you. And then we get to see like lovely codependency rearing its ugly head and all of that. So those overly porous boundaries, it's letting too many people in as opposed to keeping them out.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, it can go both ways.
Mhm.
But yeah, it just depends on what your experience and stuff was,
Yeah.
was with it. So why do people have such a hard time speaking up for themselves?
They are afraid of being eaten. So I have a background in psychology, but also in anthropology. And what we learned about Cro-Magnon man and that the tribal mentality back in the beyond the
Hmm.
olden days is that if you were not liked, if you were not accepted, if you were not a part of the group, you were in danger because you needed the tribe to keep an eye out for you. You needed the tribe to watch your back while you slept and make sure that you don't become dinner for a passing tiger.
Right.
Um, and if you did, well, now you're out on your own, and now, I mean, you're dinner. And we've still got that lizard brain going on. We've still got all of that knowledge inside our bodies. So while we are not actually afraid of being eaten, or we don't think we are, we're like, well, what happens if I get cast out? What happens if people don't like me? What happens if I say no and I'm not everything to everyone? And it sounds silly, but it's really a hop, skip, and a jump to from they're not going to like me to I'm going to be dinner.
Yeah, I like that. That's the first time I've heard it, called that way. Normally people say, they're afraid of being judged or not liked or whatever, but this is the first time I've ever heard somebody say eaten, but that is
Yeah.
definitely a good analogy and it makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. So how can people start creating boundaries for them in their life, in their own life?
So the first thing that I always say with my clients is you have the right to. And that's something that you said it earlier. A lot of people love that line. No is a complete sentence. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. However, if you don't believe you have the right to say no, that you are allowed to say no, that the world will not end if you say no, you can't say it. So it's uncovering those hidden beliefs, those, I grew up with this knowledge that I would be cast out of the family, I would be shunned. Um it's getting rid of those beliefs that the only way people are going to like me is if I'm everything to everybody, and if I do for others, over the top and don't take care of myself. So really the first step to being able to set boundaries is just accepting in your heart that you can. And I always like to say, you officially have permission. If nobody's ever told you before, you officially have permission, today's date, that you can set boundaries. It's okay.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And it's, you get so caught up trying to be everything to everybody else. And then a lot
Yeah.
of times you lose who you really are.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. That's like I said, you can't possibly relate or know anyone that can relate to anybody that can possibly relate to that. But yes, it is so true. So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so it's called You Had Me at No, How Setting Healthy Boundaries Helps Banish Burnout, Repair Relationships, and Save Your Sanity. And I went ahead and created an adult coloring book to go with it because who doesn't like to color? But really my goal with this book is I am not suggesting that you become this selfish, cold-hearted bastard that doesn't do anything for anyone. I'm truly not. I still
Right.
believe our our rent for being on this planet is service to others. It makes us feel good. It's why we're here. What I want people to be able to do is to consider each situation. Stop that automatic response of like, yes, sure, I'll do that. Yep, I can do that all for you. Which sometimes we say before they finish asking the question, and sometimes we answer and they haven't even asked the question. They're not asking for help, but we're giving it. So I want to stop that flow and create intentional decisions. So is this something that I want to, that I can do, that in this moment I can make a decision on a, per case basis? Yes, I want to help you. No, I'm not able to right now. Have that intentional thought process. And that's really the goal of the book, is how do we do that? And then how do we communicate it in a way that we don't lose friends? And we don't push people away, and we can communicate it to the point where we don't lose relationships because we just push them away because we can't tell them in a healthy manner.
Yeah, normally it's easier to cut ties and go than to try and say, hey, this is not working for me.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, don't know what you're talking about.
Ghosting has its place, but that's not it.
Don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. No, I got in the habit of, I'll have a friend maybe sometime will ask me, hey, can I ask you a question? I said, no. I'm like, no, what do you want? I'm like, just the fun, just to watch the response in their face. Like, and I was like, yeah, no. No is the complete word. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So what is the best way for people to connect with you or contact you?
Yeah, so my website is SherylGreenSpeaks.com, and it's S for Sheryl. You can email me through there. You can find my books through there and those links. And you can also download a free cheat sheet. So people often have a hard time saying no. So I did some sentence starters. So people know they can go into a conversation and they've got a way to start communicating what they need to communicate. So you can download that there as well.
Right. Nice. And we will put all of those in the comments of this for the video once we post it.
Thank you.
Due to technical issues. But anyway, so before we go and before we end, what is one thing you want people to really take away from this?
That you don't have to be everything to everyone. You really don't. It's okay to actually put yourself first once in a while and be there for yourself. And then with what's left, with that energy that you've got left, that's where you help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheryl, I want to thank you for taking the time and working through our technical issues
happens.
today. It happens. We roll with it. But thank you so much for taking the time and being here with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. And I will see everybody next time. Have a great weekend.